Namaskar. Being here at Yoga Shakti Ashram with Mokshapriya ji is always a joy. In normal day-to-day life, the kind of challenges we face, competitive spirit as well as inner conflicts that results into avoidable aggression or stress. So, let me request you to share your first exposure to practice of yoga.
That was, that's a long story. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Since childhood, I've had a very bad back. I have herniated discs in my thoracic and in my lumbar region. And I have arthritis in my neck. That was an injury when I was very young. And so all of my teenage and young adult years, I was in pain 24/7. And when I turned to be about 25 years old, I said, I was gaining a little bit of weight, and I said, I need some exercises. So I thought I'd start and looked at a yoga studio in Miami. And I found one Swami, Jyotirmayananda. And he had a yoga class, and I attended it. I wouldn't tell this to one of my students now, but, but every time I did yoga, it would be very, very painful. The first few it would be very painful with the herniated disc. And I was told by everybody, you never do yoga. But I noticed that when I did yoga, even though it was painful while I was doing it, there was less pain the rest of the day. And after going 6 nights a week after work for 3 years, I stopped having pain during the day. Now, for me, that's it. And then when and so I was continued doing the yoga. I was teaching yoga at the time and everything else. And we're talking 52 years later. Here I am.
So if I look in the calendar to pinpoint the year when you started learning yoga, and there was someone teaching yoga in Miami. Which year was that?
1968.
1968. So
I started teaching 1970.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, as you started teaching, you through your practice discovered that there is much more to yoga than having a physical sort of fitness.
Oh, absolutely. Even though I'm associated here with a temple, the studio's right next door. The door is always open. We never mention temple or anything. It's always, even though just the atmosphere of the ashram is affecting. Yoga affects your nervous system, number one. Your immune system, number two. It allows your natural energy, which we call Kundalini energy, that is the energy that needs to be activated. It allows that to start flowing effortlessly. You never activate it with power. And so what I find with students, and myself of course, but what I find with students, they are able, for no other reason but coming 3 times a week, can handle situations in life better, are not as nervous, are not as, the benefits are enormous. And all you're doing is an hour of physical exercises. How does this happen? It's the most fantastic program. My guru, my Yoga Shakti, who has established this program, she used to say, show me anything better and I'll change. There's nothing better. It is amazing. But you have to do it. The problem is people don't come on a regular basis. And I thought maybe...
So when you say you have to do it, and in general, image of yoga practice brings someone performing or doing certain asanas, some postures, which involves movement of your body, maybe a bending up front side or back side. I mean, there are some names and all that, but I would request you to say something more about the significance of asanas, and then probably there are certain combination of asana which is suitable for A person, which may not be suitable for B person. So you do
Okay,
identify
well,
that.
see. In our school, we have beginners, intermediate, and advanced. The youngsters and the seniors all mixed, because this is the beauty about yoga. What people don't understand is the minute you assume a yoga pose, it creates it creates a energy field within the body. The pose doesn't have to be perfect. I know yoga magazines always have these slim, beautiful people doing beautiful yoga poses, and it's really a shame because people feel afraid to do it. No matter how, if you do it to the very best of your ability, no matter if you can touch the toes or not, you receive the same benefit, the same mudra. And we all know about mudras from the hands and fingers and other things, but no, poses are mudras and create an energy field within the physical body that absolutely change the whole physiology and the mind. Remember, mind and physiology is combined. So whatever is in the mind, the neurotransmitters in the mind relate to every cell in your body. But it goes reverse too. Whatever is in the cell in the body goes back to the mind. So it's a wonderful system. And so everybody, no matter what your ability is, can do yoga. They just do it. Sometimes I have a chair in front of a person that's not so balanced. When they're seniors, we have a lot of seniors. Believe it or not, they're still doing every pose.
That's beautiful. And if you are talking to a musician, you sometimes ask them, is there any favorite raga that you love? And so I don't know whether this question is very childish, but so is there any posture or asana which while you started practicing, you felt that this gives me the maximum kind of inner harmony?
It has to be a balance of certain postures. Okay? It's not one posture. One posture will absolutely not do it. It's a balance of, remember, we have the lymph nodes. They do not have a pump like our heart. So all the twisting and turning and so forth, we need to squeeze every lymph node for the health of the physical body. So it's a whole series of asanas that needs to be done in some form or another. I've developed, the basic 8s, I call it, and all my teachers have to teach it. They're not all easy, but everybody does part of it.
Yeah. Now, looking at yoga from the point of view asanas, then pranayama and meditation, and there are many more aspects to it. But if I request you to tell us, you also synchronize your breathing pattern with asanas. That is very important.
Without breathing, it's not yoga. Breathing has to be done throughout the whole practice. Concentration on various parts of the body, which doesn't work so well in America as it does in India, but because here people are more active, so I don't worry about that too much. But the breath, the flow of the breath is utmost. The minute you don't breathe during asanas, it's exercise. There's totally different effect. So you're actually, when you come to yoga, you're actually doing 1 whole hour of pranayama. Whereas pranayama, to teach pranayama, I can teach pranayama for 10 minutes. It really has very little effect. Pranayama needs a whole half hour at least to 45 minutes to be effective. So it's better to just allow your students, we only teach for 1 hour a class. That was what Mataji wanted, just an hour, because she says people's concentration is an hour is perfect. And meditation and relaxation. Relaxation is very important. And we take a time out for relaxation at the end. We also teach meditation. But that people have to be interested. We don't push it or anything like that. But it has to be a whole series of breathing and posture. Absolute.
So coming back to the difference, of course there is difference because now we hear a lot of schools of yoga are emphasizing on pranayam, and there are different types of pranayams also which are taught. But the way I understand, and which you also mentioned, even while you are not doing pranayam in the seated posture, uh, when you are performing asanas, pranayam is integral part of asana.
Yeah,
Is it?
pranayam. Okay, when you're talking about the 8 limbs of yoga, you're talking about yam, niyam, asana, pranayam. Asana, pranayam. Pranayam doesn't mean breathing exercises. Pranayam means having control over your vayus, over your prana, having control over the prana, which you're not going to get until you are a very accomplished yogi. And it takes many years of study. So what we're talking about pranayam that we practice, like the Bhastrika, the Kapalabhati, and so forth, those are great things to improve the lung capacity and so forth. But they're really, the most important thing is the deep breathing, to build up the diaphragm, to breathe diaphragmatically and deep breathing. That is the most important because it's needed for the health of the body and the mind especially.
Now, pranayam helps one get into that stillness of mind where it's easy to meditate. Or let me request you to define the way you define meditation.
Okay, the meditation actually is being in the present moment, 100%. But how do we get into meditation? And so there's a very simple way of explaining it. It's usually called dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Dharana is concentration. We concentrate on something. And once you concentrate on that, let's say a prayer or a thought or a beautiful flower or whatever. You concentrate on it, you make the concentration very strong so that you harness the mind and bring it into one, or like Patanjali says, put a border around the mind. And you bring it into one focus because we're thinking 100 things all at once. Our mind is so sharp, it's going everywhere. So you bring it in. And so you're actually creating like a groove of thought. And after you have created a groove of thought, let's say I'm thinking and meditating on compassion. And I'm creating a groove of thought about compassion and only thinking compassion. After a while, when my mind is that focused, the mind leaves, it goes away. And you flow with a knowledge that comes intuitively through you, and you go into meditation. And that flow out of the mind is really meditation. So, and when you come back, you don't know what you meditate, what your answer was for the meditation, but it will become a priori knowledge. In other words, it's in there. It's as if you have experienced it. But when I say I'm going to teach you meditation, all I can do is teach you concentration and how to get into it, because meditation is outside of the mind. And it's a wonderful place to be. And we all have that ability, and people are not using it. We have intuition. We have that intuition that comes, what we call gut feeling and things like that, where we tap into our source of information. And in meditation, you tap into your source of information that comes from your divine.
That's beautifully put. I was paying attention to the way you were making it understandable for us. And I'll say it again. You said meditation is beyond mind, and that is a beautiful place. And many of us are not aware of it. And even if sometimes some people have tasted it, they find it difficult to reach there again. So it has, I'm asking you, does it take into account your eligibility to become meditative. Take into account that the way you are conducting yourself throughout the day, and if you are in the midst of hectic pace of activity and you have a lot of thoughts where you need to respond to somebody who is either threatening you at the office space, or I mean what I'm trying to
Okay,
seek you.
I understand where you're coming from, and this would be a question for many people. Mindfulness comes number one. When you begin to become mindful, what does that mean? Being aware of what you are doing. So if you're when you study great CEOs, they have the wonderful ability to go from one thought, stay in that one thought, and go over to the next thought without mixing the two. Aha! Here is the thing. So if you are in an office, and of course we get exhausted when we're constantly interrupted with trying to do something, because that is what gives us stress, not being able to focus on one thing. So when you develop mindfulness, that means being totally aware of everything that you're doing, including like getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. And because when I brush my teeth, where your mind is going, what do you have to do today? All of those. No, do one thing at a time and practice like that. And after you practice like that, you begin to bring it into your day-to-day life. And that mindfulness is so important. And you will hear that the Buddhists teach mindfulness first and foremost, and that is correct. That is the easiest way to get into meditation. Yeah.
And getting into your own inner growth, if I may mention, with respect to your capacity or intensity in terms of meditating. If you just compare your own experience of meditating in the early days, since it has been 5 decades that you have been a part of yoga practice, and now.
Okay. In the early days, I was afraid to meditate. I would get into deep meditation and I go, oh my goodness, what am I going to find? Am I going to find the devil in me? All my negative aspects? And in those days, people weren't telling you that the core of your being, the divine resides in the core of your being. When you meditate, you go into the core of your being, your divinity. When you meditate, you find the divine within you, no matter which God you believe in, but the divine is within every soul, and there's only one divine. And so that divinity is what we find. And that divinity, our soul self, our Holy Spirit, is who we contact during meditation. So the first thing to do, when we start, we usually start and we are very good at getting it. And we have like experiences, deep meditation experiences. And then all of a sudden it's like, no matter how hard you try, well, you know what that is? It is when the 4 horses have to come along and, in the Bhagavad, we have 4 horses. We have Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. And we have to, in order to meditate, we have to develop ourselves as well. And so we are not going to go into meditation unless we observe and become a little bit more spiritual. This is why Patanjali mentions the yams and niyams. That's why we have the 10 commandments. All of those lead to that particular result. And then you will be able to meditate more and more. But most importantly is you've got to practice every day. Mindfulness. Even if you don't get into meditation, it doesn't matter. Practice, because it will lead to peace of mind.
And talk to me about the importance of mantra in moving towards that state of meditation.
Mantra yoga is, for me, from my experience, is the best technique. Okay, Mantra yoga, what it does is you have a mantra. It can be one you can get yourself. It can be one you're initiated with. It doesn't matter. And it's something that you repeat repeatedly. And once you see, whatever we think about, this is something we need to understand. Whatever we think about, we make a groove in our mind. Nowadays they call them neural pathways. Mm-hmm. And so with a mantra, you're creating a groove in the mind, or a neural pathway. And the more you repeat it, the more it creates the groove. So we'd say, well, do your mala 108 times, but that's not enough. You have to repeat it during the day as well. And so when your mind is, and if the groove is deep enough, if you have practiced enough, when the mind is idle, it will automatically fall into that groove. Because we have times that we're not thinking, and you don't know what you're doing with your mind. Mataji always said, mind is a devil's workshop. An idle mind is a devil's workshop, which is true. Because if you'll sit here and you'll be staring into space, and I will say to you, what are you thinking about? And you go, huh? I don't know. And that's the idle mind. It goes into your subconscious and repeats negative patterns usually, because those are the strongest ones, and keeps repeating them, and therefore creating more, making the groove of those negative patterns deeper and deeper. What we want to do is create a groove our mind flows into. So people who are experienced in meditation like this, they'll wake up to the mantra, they'll go to sleep to the mantra. That when the mind is idle, they will go into the mantra until the mind has to do something, which is a wonderful, to me, it's the most fantastic tool. Now, our people who like to sell things know this truth very well, and they keep doing jingles, and you repeat the jingles in your mind. Well, mantra, in my opinion, is your spiritual jingle.
Beautifully put. So spiritual jingle mantra, and there are several mantras, and you mentioned you can pick, or it could be like commonly practiced mantras, and I'm not mentioning any, consciously avoiding that. But there is a mantra that you pick from some book or you heard some place, and there is another mantra that you are initiated into. So what is the difference in the two? And allow me to also add, you have mentioned the role Mataji played in helping you understand and imbibe. So the role of a guru in one's spiritual life.
You know, when you do things for yourself, it's one way. When you do things and you know that somebody's looking, it's another way. So the guru is your guide. I don't even like to use the word guru anymore because it has so many different negative connotations. A guru is your guide on your spiritual path. Everybody needs a guru, but it doesn't have to be a living guru. It can be a guide from a book or previous life or gurus. But what happens is that their energy, once they initiate you, that their energy is allowed to flow to you when you are repeating the mantra. As a guru, you do not interfere in anyone's energy unless they want that. You cannot change people's karma. You can't do any of that. You're not allowed to do that. So you work with it by having established a relationship between yourself and your disciple. And when they are not feeling well or whatever, I can send energy. I'm allowed to send energy. It's like a permission. That's all it is. And one thing I want to say about a mantra, you want to use a mantra with a sacred language. So we have Latin, we have Hebrew, and we have Sanskrit. You definitely want to do that. You don't want to use a mantra with the common language because it has too many connotations and flavors. And if you don't know what the mantra means, it's okay, because those sacred languages create whatever they say in your mind. They set up the vibration. So you don't need to know the meaning, and sometimes not knowing the meaning is better than knowing the meaning, so that you don't mix up the vibration. So the sacred language would be the best.
So we'll conclude, and I'll chant one shlok.
Good.
Patanjali, sage Patanjali. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vadyakena yopakarotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalirana tosmin.